Hey friends, I'm Steph from CheapskateCook.com and welcome to my kitchen. We're gonna make chocolate today. So there are two camps when it comes to saving money, eating healthy, and eating dessert. Camp one is I'm trying to eat healthy, and so I'd really like my desserts to be healthy too. Camp two is I'm already eating healthy, don't mess with my desserts. I tend to fall into camp one, where I'm totally happy for my desserts to be really healthy or like just a touch healthier for a couple of reasons. One is I feel better when my desserts are full of real food. Real quick, if you like chocolate, if you like where this video is going, hit the like and subscribe button. And second, that's part of just how I grew up. My family made a lot of real food, and so a lot of times the healthier desserts are a little more nostalgic for me. And my hope is for my kids, even though they are totally happy eating sugary cereal and they like candy and all the normal things that kids like, hopefully when they get older, some of the healthier desserts will also be kind of nostalgic for them and they'll just have acquired a taste for them. I mean, I don't want anybody messing with my Snickers or my Tootsie Rolls, but we can go ahead and make some healthy desserts. Okay, my favorite version of freezer chocolate is chocolate and peanut butter. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Are you a peanut butter and chocolate person, or are you a regular chocolate person? So I started making freezer chocolate back when we were doing a really intense healing diet to try to figure out some issues in our family. And so we were all on this thing and we couldn't have any granulated sugar. And I just really wanted dessert, but I needed to find one that didn't have any grain, it didn't have any granulated sugar, and I was also dairy free at the time, so it needed to not have any dairy. I mean, there were a lot of things that we were working around, but even though we aren't on that diet anymore, I still make freezer chocolate because it was so delicious. It takes like 5 minutes to make it, and it just kind of gives you that I really want chocolate, but I wouldn't mind if it was a little healthier. I also don't want to pay an arm and a leg for like a little piece of chocolate that has mostly ingredients that I'm okay with. And we're on a budget, so even though I want to eat really healthy, I also want to make sure that I'm not spending so much money on like chocolate. So this recipe uses ingredients that we already had in our kitchen, and they are ones that are fairly easy to find. There's one ingredient that you might have to like order online depending on where you live. For the most part, it's just normal, simple ingredients. Of course, this is also not as cheap as like beans and rice. We're talking about making sugar-free, grain-free, dairy-free chocolate. But I'm gonna show you some budget-friendly tips and how we make this fit into our budget. A great thing about this recipe is how easy it is to put together. You literally just stir all the ingredients into a bowl, scoop it onto a baking sheet or into like a little mini muffin tin if you want to be fancy, and freeze it. That's it. You can also adjust the ingredients to taste, so it's not like this recipe is dependent on like certain ratios of ingredients in order for the texture to turn out right or anything like that. It's literally just stir it all in a bowl, taste it, if you're happy with it, freeze it, done. The first ingredient in this recipe is coconut oil, and that is the weirdest ingredient that this whole recipe has. If you are allergic to coconut, then I shared some coconut-free alternatives in the description. If you can't find coconut anywhere, but you can have dairy, then you can just use like really good butter, and that's gonna be really delicious. But if you do that, you don't want to freeze this recipe, you just want to stick it in the fridge. We buy our coconut oil in bulk from either Costco or we order it online. So I shared resources for that in the description. Coconut oil is expensive, but when it comes to making clean eating chocolate, then it's something that I'm willing to pay for. And obviously I'm not like advocating that you eat coconut oil by the spoon, but we use some in this recipe and it just makes this dessert awesome. The next ingredient is cocoa powder, or you can use cacao powder. I've never said it out loud. I don't know exactly how to say it. The next ingredient you will need is cocoa or cacao powder, and that is like you can just use whatever you can find, so cheap cocoa powder will work just fine. But I will say, because this recipe has so few ingredients, the better the cocoa powder that you can get, the better the recipe will taste. So we got some cacao from Costco that was budget friendly enough that I was willing to try it, and oh my goodness, it makes this recipe amazing. But it's also more expensive, so I just use it for this recipe and maybe a little bit if I'm making like a chocolate shake. But in the end, just use whatever you have. The next ingredient you need is peanut butter. And I'm one of those annoying people that thinks that chocolate and peanut butter is dessert's highest calling, so why would you mess with that? But if you don't like peanut butter, just use another kind of nut butter. Almond butter and cashew butter would work great for this recipe. If you are nut-free, I shared some tips in the description. You'll want a little bit of vanilla extract and just a pinch of salt if your peanut butter isn't very salty. So my peanut butter is not very salty. I just add a pinch of salt and it tastes fantastic. But if your peanut butter is more salty, then you might be able to skip this. I would just taste it and see. And lastly, the sweetener. We use maple syrup because that is our favorite flavor liquid sweetener. But you can use honey, you can use raw honey, you can use agave nectar, whatever liquid sweetener that you feel comfortable with would work in this recipe. You can also adjust how sweet you want it. So I like extra, extra dark chocolate, so I would put just like a little bit of maple syrup in it. But if you're using this as a clean eating alternative for your kids, or you just really prefer sweeter chocolate, just keep adding a little bit more sweetener. It's not going to hurt the texture of your chocolate. Maple syrup and honey are pretty expensive, so if you are trying to use the least amount possible, just know that it will taste sweeter after it's frozen. Taste it and stop like just before it gets too sweet. I mean, worst case scenario, you have really sweet chocolate. Like, that's not a big problem. Okay, enough talking about the chocolate, let's actually make it. parenting hack for you. If you're afraid of your kids eating all the chocolate before you can get to it, just hide it in one of these frozen vegetable bags. I know that seems a little mean, but like, brilliant, right? Okay, that's how you make our clean eating freezer chocolate. I hope that this recipe shows you how simple it can be and kind of how you can try to make it fit into your budget and make it work for you and your particular tastes. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Steph from CheapskateCook.com, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for more ways to save money and eat healthy. Okay, enough chocolate. That's what you, so I needed desserts being a little bit healthier. Why is it so loud? My favorite version, my favorite,